Not sure if we're going to see that come into play here, but we do see the Umbreon in play, so that is a very exciting start to this game one now that it's finally underway.
Yeah, as we do take the leads on the field, Umbreon and Tapu Lele for Hirofumi going up against Yveltal and Incineroar. There's actually 3 Pokemon taking advantage of the Dark Aura right now, and so Hirofumi has been able to take advantage of his opponent bringing that Yveltal. This has been a tournament nearly full of Xerneas, so Yveltal's been a lot lower down the pecking order. And so being able to not only bring that Pokemon, succeed with that Pokemon, and now cash in on that sweet, sweet Dark typing. I don't know if it's going to be too important right now, but it's certainly an option.
It certainly is an option, and I really like how Hirofumi led the Tapu Lele alongside of that Umbreon on his side of the field. I don't think Tapu Lele is going to do much, if at all anything, quite frankly, this turn, but leading it allows it to set up the Psychic terrain in a situation where it otherwise would have been staring down 2 very powerful Dark-type Pokemon. So not giving it the opportunity to, I guess, attack in this case as well.
Yeah, it's going to go after the Incineroar there, trying to deal some damage with the Moonblast. The Tapu Lele is going to lose its Choice Scarf to the knockoff from this Incineroar, but the foul play will follow up from the Umbreon, not very effective, and Incineroar brought down to a little low under its, just under half, a little bit more than that. Taking a lot of damage right there.
But Hirofumi made the correct prediction there, which was that the Yveltal would protect and doubled into the Incineroar. So even though nothing was necessarily knocked out that turn, he has a great start. Unfortunately for him, the loss of the Choice Scarf on Tapu Lele is unfortunate, but I don't think he necessarily needs it at this point in time, depending on how this Tapu Lele has been trained. It should be able to get 1 more attack in, depending on who this Yveltal targets.
Well, the big thing there is the Tapu Lele without the Choice Scarf is just not really doing anything it needs to for the rest of the game. So going down isn't the biggest problem there. Umbreon's going to take a lot of damage from a critical hit U-turn off this Incineroar. So this is going to be a whole lot of damage landing on the field from Meagan. Really exciting to see a play like that. Amoonguss switching in to go alongside this Yveltal. Maybe able to buy it some time. And Umbreon's foul play heading towards that newly switched in Amoonguss. Decent amount of damage, but there's a good chance it might not even stick with that Regenerator ability.
Definitely not, and I like the switch in of the Amoonguss as well because, looking at the other Pokemon present on Meagan's team sheet, or, the team that he brought in with him, it's, these Pokemon could have been very offensive otherwise. So this Amoonguss, not known for having the highest attack stat, that foul play certainly did a chunk of damage, but, it's potentially less than something else would have been caught with on the switch.
Yeah, well, there is an easy answer to Amoonguss, and that's something like the Salamence. The Salamence with obviously the Aerialate ability once it Mega Evolves does become a whole lot more threatening to this Amoonguss than it does right now. Being able to turn Double Edge into a flying type move makes Amoonguss a piece of cake to deal with, really. This Yveltal, though, seems just in a very unfazed position right now. It's just able to sit there, start dealing some damage, cause some issues that way, and just wait out until the threat actually comes along.
Exactly, and I think that's why Yveltal is so good in this matchup, essentially the Xerneas-less matchup. It's very hard to, aggressively target down this dark flying type Pokemon when you don't have something like a fairy type Pokemon on your side. This Salamence certainly will be able to deal a nice chunk of damage, but you can't ignore that Amoonguss because then it will go for something like a Spore or otherwise just, take up time and sort of slow the game down so that those hits that Yveltal is dealing are going to matter that much more.
Well, the hit that's really going to try and matter now is the one from Salamence, as we do get the Umbreon revealing its helping hand right there. So the Salamence doing a whole lot more. That attack guaranteed to head towards the Amoonguss after the Rage Powder, pulling that in, knocking itself out for the trouble, maybe buying enough time for something to come back from this Yveltal. It will be foul play. It is, of course, boosted by the Dark Aura, heads towards Salamence, but it's not enough for the knockout there.
No, but that Salamence is certainly within knockout range from recoil from another Double Edge, so Hirofumi is going to have to think very closely how he uses that Salamence's last attack, if you will. I think he will be forced to protect this turn, or maybe even switch the Salamence out to save that attack for later, now that it's been intimidated by the Incineroar coming back in on Meagan's side of the field. But, overall, just hanging around for 1 more attack, which might be enough. I like that it was the Incineroar Incineroar that returned to the field on Meagan's side of the field. I like that he's sort of keeping the mystery alive about what that last Pokemon is. But, you know, looking at Umbreon and making the assumption that, you know, that last Pokemon is going to be some sort of physical attacker, you know, this Incineroar and this Yveltal still have to knock it out and remove the threat of foul play. And that's not even taking into account Hirofumi's own last Pokemon, which is still a secret, at least until the start of this turn.
Well, Salamence leaves the field and Groudon takes its place. That will be Primal Reverting as soon as it lands. No concerns right there.
No surprises either,
yeah,
really.
Not really a shocker. A pretty good target for something like Foul Play. It does have huge attack. It does also have huge defense, though. But those little foul plays will potentially just be adding up over the course of the next couple of turns. We'll see Incineroar's pretty nice and healthy, all things considered, what's going on there. The Sucker Punch will fail, and another U-turn into that Umbreon slot. Brings it down under half. Does get out with all of its health. So it looks like Umbreon's going to get a little bit more health itself as well. It activates a Citrus Berry. Not as big recovery as we're used to, but still a decent little amount. And Incineroar gets to save not only its Intimidate, but its Fake Out for later too.
Yeah, and the Citrus Berry also activates before one of those Pinch Berries, so possibly keeping Umbreon out of knockout range for something like a Xerneas. Not that that necessarily matters in this matchup. I think what matters most is the fact that Meagan was able to get his Kyogre out on the field essentially for free.
Yeah, getting that on the field for free against this Groudon is really, really good, and that's going to force a potential switch. The other option, you know, if you switch out, you know that it's going to be a Salamence. That's the only other choice. Umbreon revealing another one of its special moves in Moonlight, and not a move we see all that often, and it's going to be recovering even more health. Not as much as it could have done in some other weather conditions, but still a good amount. Umbreon basically back to full after that Citrus Berry and Moonlight combination.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the weather was taken away right before Umbreon went for that Moonlight, because it would have actually healed an amazing portion of its health. With the rain up on the field, Moonlight will actually heal the least amount of health possible for that move, but that's okay. I mean, that Umbreon is not threatened by any KOs at the moment on the field that we know of, especially now that Yveltal is choosing to opt for a bit of speed control instead.
Well, I think this turn could put Meagan in a really, really good position. The Tailwind is going to be up for the next few turns, and there's not going to be an opportunity to match that as Salamence is removed on the way in. This game gets real easy for Meagan, essentially just being able to switch it out. We'll switch out the Kyogre, but as soon as that Groudon comes back in and is stuck on its own, and then just deal with it with something like the Water Spout. So a real easy endgame coming in here. Of course, you do have to consider knocking out the Umbreon at some point, but as soon as it's on its own, it's pretty easy to deal with.
Definitely. I really do like how that Umbreon's been using the Dark Aura to its you know, benefit, while the Yveltal has been on the field, you know, really powering up those foul plays. But unfortunately, I just don't see the damage potential there. Hirofumi does have the benefit of one turn here where the Kyogre may have to switch out if Meagan decides that he needs the weather to win this matchup. But, you know, with the speed control on his side with that Tailwind, that means that the Yveltal should be easily able to target down that Groudon with something like a Foul Play and really just leave this Umbreon as one of the last Pokemon standing for Hirofumi.
Yeah, well, that Kyogre is staying in, just trying to kind of push through with Brute Force. That Umbreon is removed from play by that Ice Beam. Meagan must be feeling pretty confident that the combination of an Incineroar and Yveltal will be able to deal with this. The Yveltal caught with the Fire Punch in the sun. A critical hit there. That does mean now that there's no option to change that weather. It is going to be a game fully played in the sun for the duration of the game, so maybe that play, that kind of push for just offense, might get punished. Incineroar comes back in, of course does have the option to Fake Out, is going to land an important Intimidate, but it's still going to be a lot closer than it potentially needed to be.
Yeah, and both these Pokemon are at or about under half health at this point in time, which means they could be within range of knockout from something like a Precipice Blades anyways. If Hirofumi has Protect on his Groudon, which he did just reveal, you know, he can stall out this turn of Fake Out, he can stall out a turn of Tailwind, and, you know, maybe just hope that Precipice Blades will connect with these targets and get the KOs he needs to win this game.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how this one plays out. Groudon does decide to Protect, burn that Fake Out turn. Certainly not the worst thing in the world there. This Kyogre's certainly struggling. I mean, you're literally limited to Ice Beam right now. Those Water-type attacks aren't going to be the play. Of course, there is still the Tailwind up, so this Kyogre is going to get a couple opportunities to go first Groudon brought really low by the Ice Beam. The Flare Blitz following up is in the sun though, and that's still not going to be enough. Groudon pretty much given one chance to fire back now. Precipice Blades is the choice. Incineroar avoids the attack, the one you really, really want to hit. Kyogre taking it like a champ too. That was the final turn of Tailwind, but the Intimidate was enough right there. Unless by some strange turn of events, Groudon gets to just completely outspeed and just land those Precipice Blades, it could be interesting. Not even given that chance, and Meagan Rattle will go one game up on Hirofumi Kimura, the Japanese national champion.
But that's great information for both these players going into Game 2. I mean, certainly Meagan knows whether or not their Kyogre was able to outspeed that Groudon, or maybe that was a speed tie, or just whatever that interaction was. That's no longer an unknown for these trainers, and I think that's going to come into play as we go into Game 2. I think Hirofumi has to make an adjustment onto how he tackled that game. Knowing that the Yveltal just was able to sit on the field for such a long period of time and, you know, get that tailwind up, you know, threaten with foul play with those sucker punches, even though the Umbreon was there to use the Dark Aura ability to its advantage, that just wasn't enough. You know, the Tapu Lele taken out before it could really deal anything more than a Moonblast worth of damage. Hirofumi needs to, you know, maybe look at the other Pokemon that he's brought to this game. You know, I think the Umbreon's great on paper, but he just needs to find more opportunities to deal damage as we go into this game too.
Yeah, I think the big concern for me in that game was Umbreon kind of sitting there and being really limited in what it was able to do, right? Like, it's a cool Pokemon, don't get me wrong, and it was benefiting from the Dark Aura. That's also really nice. But at the same time, like, you know, if it's not putting out the damage, if it's not applying enough pressure with the combination of snarls and foul plays, you know, even the addition of Helping Hand, if it was being used a little bit more, could have applied more pressure. You do have to wonder, you know, maybe Umbreon's time to sit on the bench for this one.
It's going to be a tough call, and only Hirofumi knows the answer to that as we see the leads revealed for Game 2 of this series. And, you know, perfect adjustment. The Salamence and the Tapu Lele. That Salamence, if it knows Tailwind, this would be an amazing opportunity to set that up.
Yeah, getting that Tailwind up would be great. You'd force something like that Yveltal to match it itself. But of course, you know, you do have to be a little bit wary of the amount of damage that can come out. Both of those Pokemon holding on to that Dark Aura, trying to do as much damage as possible while that is in play. The Incineroar did a lot to Tapu Lele, not enough, of course, but still a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, going back to turn 1 of Game 1, you know, Hirofumi was correctly able to predict the Protect on that Yveltal. You have to wonder if that's something that Meagan's going to go for again in this game too. That Moonblast wasn't able to KO that Incineroar, but it still did a ton of damage. That would be really unfortunate for that Yveltal to be caught with. And again, going back to how Game 1 planned out, you really want to try and remove this Yveltal off the field as soon as you can. And Fire Punch worked great in Game 1. Maybe we should try that for Game 2. Now that Intimidate's not something that he's, you know, necessarily worried about.
Yep, that Tapu Lele leaving the field there knows that two Dark types don't make for a very fun time overall. But Groudon taking its place, a much better matchup against these two, I feel. Of course, Incineroar would be looking to try and deal the most damage with Knockoff, and that's just not going to work against either of these Pokemon. It does start out with a Fake Out, though, taking advantage of the fact Salamence isn't touching the Psychic terrain. That doesn't mean Salamence fails to move, and we are going to see a Z move immediately following that up from this Yveltal. We've seen the dance, we know exactly that it's going to be the Darkinium Z, and we talked about it before. I talked about it, I think, yesterday, when we used to see Yveltal was all about just getting that Z Crystal, getting that activated, and landing a big Black Hole Eclipse. It's not going to be going towards that Salamence slot, no follow-up there, as Groudon is not going to appreciate that, but doesn't really mind in the same vein. Like, getting damage down is important, but that's just not enough.
No, and you have to wonder why that was the choice that Meagan made against what was a Tapu Lele in that slot. I mean, certainly a Z move would have been a bit overkill, you know, in terms of damage right there.
I guess it kind of hollers back to Game 1, right, where you stayed in and it was able to take at least one move. So if it's, you know,
That's
if
true.
you've got the
That's true.
opportunity,
Yeah.
you want to just take the knockout and carve out that early Pokemon advantage once again.
Yeah,
It was really tough to see that go into a Groudon, though, and just do negligible damage.
Yeah, and it's probably an indication that whatever Meagan has in the back of their party is something that they don't necessarily want that Tapu Lele to be staring down. Fortunately for Meagan, though, gets the Kyogre switch in, removes the weather from Groudon on the field, and that might be enough to save Yveltal for this turn.
Yeah, I really like this switch in. Of course, you do remove the potential Fire Punch from play, and then you basically say, well, if you do Precipice Blades, I know you've got it, I saw it game one, you are one of those that relies on the Precipice Blades, then you're not going to be able to hit Yveltal. Salamence doesn't Mega Evolve, staying in its classic form, trying to save and Intimidate for later maybe. Yveltal doesn't match the Tailwind either. The Foul Play is going to be the choice right here as Groudon takes a whole lot of damage, not enough for a knockout. Cleverly reads the potential switch in of Kyogre and does Precipice Blades. Doing some damage is better than doing no damage, and Kyogre is below just half health already. The problem is right now, though, if you're in Meagan's shoes, that Groudon is going to be moving first, that Salamence is going to be following up as well, or Salamence is actually going to go before Groudon, but the Tailwind's in play, so you may not be able to get another attack down.
The Tailwind's in play, and the Psychic Terrain is protecting Groudon from the threat of a Sucker Punch from that Yveltal. So while this isn't the best situation for Groudon to be in, you know, it's certainly going to be knocked out after one more hit. It's as protected as it could have been going into this turn, and I like the switch out from Hirofumi there. You know, maybe recognizing the fact that removing the rain, you know, later on in the game is probably more important, and Umbreon is certainly suited to take something like an Ice Beam from that Kyogre.
Well, as well, the Umbreon in the Tailwind should be able to move first and lower some stats with Snarl, which could be really important. Yveltal not even trying to match the Tailwind, just pretty okay playing in it. A really tiny foul play into this Umbreon. Does leave the Salamence open, though. The Ice Beam will connect in there. An easy knockout right there, even after that tiny bit of damage we saw earlier. Salamence does fall and level up the Pokemon count. But honestly, this gives Hirofumi a good opportunity to just bring Groudon back in.
And take advantage of one of the last turns of Tailwind on his side of the field. But looking at the last three Pokemon Hirofumi has remaining, you know, there is that Groudon who's at, you know, in the red, you know, one hit away from getting knocked out, especially if Meagan's able to find a way to stall out the remainder of this Psychic Terrain and use something like the Sucker Punch to get that knockout. There's the Choice Scarf Tapu Lele, which is locked into attacking, but if it comes in too soon and is on the field when that Psychic Terrain, you know, gets removed from the field and the Yveltal's still there, Sucker Punch is still going to be a problem. And on top of all that, you know, Meagan does have the advantage of knowing all four of the Pokemon that Hirofumi brought to this game. We still don't know what Meagan's last Pokemon is. And, you know, looking back at game one, I think we saw the Amoonguss in that slot. Now that the Salamence has been removed from play, you know, that Amoonguss is really only threatened by the Tapu Lele. And again, that's something that Meagan has the tools to handle.
This Groudon's so perilously low. It looks so inviting to try and knock it out, but it's certainly not going to be the easiest thing. There's a little bit more Tailwind to get through as well, and this could be a whole amount of damage. Helping Hand, probably not needed depending on what attack we go for. Yveltal protects itself though, and if this is the correct call by Meagan, this could get real nasty. Oh, Kyogre also protects.
A safe call.
Yeah, a little bit safe. I got really excited there. I thought that the Fire Punch was heading towards Yveltal, and then, you know, we were going to get the kind of return knockout there. But knowing that it's, you know, here's the choice, right? Precipice Blades or Fire Punch is only going to be able to knock out one of them. You either land the Precipice Blades on Kyogre and Yveltal's safe because it's flying, or you land the Fire Punch on Yveltal and Kyogre's able to do some damage. So I think if Meagan can find an opportunity to knock out this Groudon, then like you said, it's Tapu Lele and Umbreon. The curious thing though is, you know, if Tapu Lele gets to come in and play the full game in its choice of terrain, that does make it a whole lot harder for Meagan. You really wanted to try and get the knockout there, force it in while the terrain was still up, and then have it expire as soon as it's come in.
Yeah, I think if I were in Hirofumi's shoes, I'd be tempted to prioritize knocking out that Yveltal over the Kyogre simply because, you know, I think the Tapu Lele has much better matchup on paper against that Kyogre. But again, that last Pokemon is still a mystery, and a KO this turn would certainly help Hirofumi plan out the end game of this match.
Yeah, well, the Helping Hand Fire Punch into Yveltal in the sun is the easiest knockout I've ever seen. No concerns there. Ice Beam follows up from Kyogre though, and it will keep the Pokemon count, you know, within a touching distance. not going to be too far at all. The sun does fade, the tailwind peters out, the psychic terrain leaves as well. So we're pretty much back to a similar turn 0. Again, we're in the same position we have been before. Umbreon is coming in, is going to be sat next to this Tapu Lele, and the damage output is just looking a little low.
It is, and that's going to be something that Hirofumi needs to find a way through. Yes, Snarl can weaken the special attack of that Kyogre that it's staring down, but this Incineroar, assuming it knows a Dark-type move, which, you know, we saw the knockoff in Game 1, that's going to bring Tapu Lele within KO range of literally any attack that we've seen from this Kyogre so far. So it's really up to this Umbreon, it almost feels like, to find a way to power through this Incineroar. You know, I think Hirofumi has the tools. You know, we've seen the helping hand. We know that'll boost the attacking power of the Pokemon that it assists, but, you know, that's only going to allow Meagan to target one of these two Pokemon, and Hirofumi has to make the correct play. Fortunately for Hirofumi, because of the Psychic Terrain's presence, you know, he knows that Meagan's not going to be able to use something like the Fake Out to sort of, you know, trip up this plan this turn, but he still needs to guess correctly, and I think that's the toughest part of this play.
Yeah, well, Psychic is going to be the lock-in here from Tapu Lele.
That seems really risky.
Must be feeling good about a way round the Incineroar. It's still not enough to deal with this Kyogre. A Scold's going to land into Tapu Lele, get the burn. I don't think it's going to be all that relevant as Incineroar follows up with a Flare Blitz here. Also heading towards that Tapu Lele. Burned by a Scold and then knocked out by a Flare Blitz. Not a great time. And it's just going to be Umbreon against 3 Pokemon for Meagan Rattle here. And looks like another player quite comfortably punching a ticket into our top cut.
Yeah, and I really do like what Hirofumi went for there. I think walking into Psychic was an indication that he was worried that the Amoonguss was the last Pokemon that Meagan had in their party. You know, Moonblast, while it would have done more damage to that Incineroar and the Kyogre, I think it would have been essentially stalled out by the Amoonguss and able to be KO'd by any attack that the Amoonguss brought with it. So it was
absolute insult to injury, knocking off the Citrus Berry, so you don't even get to use it when you're bought just under half. At least
we'll get to see the last Pokemon that Meagan brought, so that's nice. But this Umbreon, it's a great defensive, supportive Pokemon, but it's just not the Pokemon that you're looking to deal KOs against an Incineroar and an Amoonguss.
Yeah, it's not going to be the play.
I mean, Meagan could even put the Umbreon to sleep if you know, they wanted to at this point in time. It's unfortunately for Hero